So just like we learned in my previous video about land prices, today we are going to uncover the differences in home prices per square footage. And if someone is telling you just one average number for square footage, they're not giving you the full story. Moving to Southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. We are going to look at three very distinctly different markets. Localized markets, but still different. We are going to look at Mountain Grove, we are going to look at Marshfield, and we are going to look at Nixa. So Mountain Grove being Wright County, Marshfield being mostly a kind of actually mix. It's Greene County and Webster County, and then Nixa being Christian County. So of course we're dealing with population differences, Mountain Grove being the least populated to Nixa being the most populated. And then we're also dealing with that very important characteristic, which is the proximity to Springfield, which may be the biggest factor in price. So starting with Mountain Grove. Mountain Grove is definitely one of the more pricey areas in Wright County. Not only does it have closer proximity to Springfield than, let's say, Hartville or some of the other towns, smaller towns within Wright County, it also is just a growing hub. It is its own little growing hub, and it's actually going through a boom phase right now. The average price per square foot for a home in Mountain Grove is $107.49. Now I want you to remember that is the absolute full gut, just terrible home averaged with a nicer, either fully remodeled or a new construction home, right? Those numbers are averaged. And so that is actually one reason why I feel a little bit of friction when I often hear people, especially real estate agents, just quoting that average number because there's so much variation within price per square footage. And really learning those variations is super powerful for sellers and buyers alike, because there's nothing worse than putting your home on the market and you're pricing a home that needs to be remodeled as the same as new construction and fully remodeled homes, and obviously you're not going to be competitive. And conversely, as a buyer, you really don't want to be paying, like, let's say, a premium price per square footage for something that truly needs an entire remodel. So that's why it is important to embrace numbers and these analytics, and you really have to take time. There's so many different angles that you can look at all these numbers, but I'm going to show you guys some tricks of how I kind of start to decode some of all these numbers so that I can really start to pull out what is a good deal and what is overpriced. Because really, we need to differentiate between all the different types of square footage. Not all square footage should be created equal, right? We've got new construction. And then if you really want to get specific, within new construction, you have low end, mid-range, and high end, right? And so that is important to note as well. I'm not going to get that detailed in this video because, hey, we don't have the time, but important to note, right? And when you go into a home, if it looks like kind of landlord finishes, those are your low grade finishes, and mid-grade feel great. Mid-grade are beautiful, and high end, you're going to be gasping, right? I mean, that's in general what your response is going to be with those finishes. So besides new builds, you should be able to kind of start to categorize square footage also with totally unremodeled, outdated, but livable, totally unremodeled, and a total full gut. Like it stinks and it's terrible and you feel filthy, like you need to take a shower after you leave the structure. There's that price per square footage. And then there's different levels of remodel. So we have a full complete remodel. Of course, then you have low, mid, and high range remodels. But then you have, just barely remodeled, right? And that's kind of that traditional, like, it's got new carpet and paint and everything else looks outdated. And in some sellers' minds, y'all think that that's fully remodeled. And I want to let you know that really a full remodel, I mean, sometimes it's straight taking it down to the studs. And I do look, when they say full remodel, I expect electrical to be updated, potentially all new plumbing. I mean, I'm looking not just at the nice stuff, right? We want to look at the entire picture of the home. Okay, so we're going to start to dig into some specifics in Mountain Grove. So I found out that the highest price per square footage of any of the homes right now on the market, so we're putting everything into one big category, and that was $191.46 per square foot. So you might think that that's going to be a fairly nice large home, and it wasn't. It was a very small 679 square foot home, just a 2-1 bath. And I do want to tell people, this is for sellers and investors. I do usually kind of recommend against buying these tiny homes, remodeling them, and then thinking that you're going to get a premium price per square footage. It can be very difficult and a little bit risky. So this one is being marketed as fully remodeled, right? So remember, this is the highest price per square footage of any of the homes for sale in Mountain Grove. And I do want to argue that a little bit. They did a lot of work. So we're talking new roof, new windows, new mini splits, all new like cabinetry, and down to that level. But you will notice it looks like some of the rooms have like old wood paneling that was just painted, or potentially they bought new paneling and put it on. But it is something I look for. It's something to be aware of, is if a home was in really bad shape and just something was slapped on top of it, there's a chance that there's kind of really gross sheetrock underneath there. But I do admit that for me, if someone's going to say something is completely remodeled, I generally want to see new sheetrock. And I do understand margins are tight. It is hard to do that as an investor or a contractor. But if you're going to charge the highest price per square footage, I kind of think that needs to be included. So the absolute lowest square footage on the market in Mountain Grove is $52.57. Now this home is another 2-1 bath, so 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's 856 square feet, and it is a full gut remodel. In fact, these ones are a little bit dangerous because it's just on that point where I would just be very wary of the prices and that it would be worthwhile to remodel it. Some of these tiny little homes, tiny little crooked homes with massive water infiltration damage, sometimes their bones aren't worth it. And really what you're looking at is something that needs to be torn down and something that is a very expensive lot. Like you're gonna pay, $40,000 for a lot, which is a lot. And I just wanted to highlight one of those properties that kind of fell right in the middle of that category, and it is $136.69 per square foot. But there was a lot of interesting factors about it. So first of all, it was under an acre. It was a half acre. It had a nice shop with electricity, cement floors. The main home was small. It was 1,240 square feet, and it was, I would say, fully remodeled. I would say kind of in between low and mid. It looked like the cabinets were probably soft close. It looked like it had nice sinks, at least hard surface counters, like not super cheap. And so, yeah, I would say it was somewhere kind of in between low and mid. And it also had, so one of the other features that I really liked about it is it had a small mother-in-law unit. It was only 360 square feet. It needed a full gut, but it looked like it had good bones. The roof looked pretty flat. It wasn't caving in or anything. It just looked like it needed a full remodel. I would even redo, maybe the studs are fine, but definitely like the sheetrock needed a new roof. Even though it didn't look caved in, it looked old and weathered. But that also is a great value add. Just an instant way to build equity in a property, and also just makes it a much more useful property. You could use it as a rental as well. And another thing I liked is that mother-in-law unit had its own private well and septic. And I couldn't find out if those were functioning within the listing, but if they are, I mean, gosh, you easily can spend $20 on a well, really $10,000 or more on a septic. I mean, some people are saying $25,000 for a well and $15,000 for a septic. It's getting crazy, but let's just say 20 and 10. So that's $38,000 in value right there, right? And yeah, and so this property was at the total purchase price would be $169,500. And I found this to be a pretty good deal. And this deal helped me to reflect once again on that home that was the highest square footage that we talked about earlier. So the home that was at $191.46. That one came out to about 130 something was the purchase price. And I'm telling you, it's only 679 square feet, and it didn't have like that full remodel. So what it did have was it had some solar panels on the roof. And that is a serious like value. And so I don't want to undercount that. But even if you calculate it, so what I'll sometimes do is like try to take away the feature that's making it seem like why it has such a high price, and try to actually like individualize and provide value for that feature, and then subtract it from the whole number and kind of see if the number makes sense then. And I truly think that this tiny home is overpriced. And I think that we'll probably see it sit until it comes down a little bit. This other one that's at $136.69 per square footage, I'm not going to be surprised if I see that go pending in a week or two, because really the numbers are pretty good there. Okay, so by looking at all these details, that is how I kind of demystify square footage. Okay, now we are on to Marshfield, and remember that's partly Webster County. Most of the actual metro is Greene County. So you're gonna see higher prices because you're getting closer to Springfield, right? So we're gonna have a jump up. The average price per square foot in Marshfield is $149.44. Definitely a jump up from $107 in Mountain Grove. So the highest, which was actually lower than I thought it was gonna be, the highest price per square foot in Marshfield is $215.30. So what we found with this home, because remember, just kind of analyzing each range kind of helps to see the full picture. It was at 1,621 square feet, not a huge home, 3-2, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I would say mid-grade finishes on 1 acre. And when I say mid-grade, really nice mid-grade. Beautiful trim, just beautiful tiling, beautiful cabinetry. The house was all brick. Everything was beautiful on it. So not terrible. $215, not terrible. And definitely, I would say proof that we're seeing some softening in prices in general, because there was a time when that number would have been a lot higher, even for Marshfield. So the lowest price per square footage in Marshfield is $118.10. And that is a beautiful 4-bedroom, 4-bath home. It's 4,022 square feet. And it just looked, I would say, fully remodeled in the early 2000s, but so incredibly custom and well done that even though it was definitely technically outdated, it still was gorgeous. And so the question is, why did this home have the lowest price per square footage? And we're talking in comparison to some real dumps. And then also, why was this home on the market for 47 days and it had a huge price drop of 65K? And the answer there is because it was built in 1903. So there's something I want to say about these older homes. First of all, I love them. I do not think that they are a bad purchase, but let me get a little bit more specific about that. So let's say that you're a family looking for a large home and a great deal. And, especially if you love that feeling of craftsmanship, these homes are great for you as long as when they were fully remodeled, all of those walls were opened up. We're talking new electrical, new plumbing. Has to be. Usually we have, these homes are remodeled every 20 to 40 years, right? You just want to make sure that electrical was not done 40 years ago. I mean, it needs to be updated at that point. So if that has all been done, these homes are great purchases. Not if you are looking at it from an investor point of view, but if you're just looking for like a great value and a great home, a great big old home with tons of character to raise your family. But here's why they're not good for investors, especially if it's been remodeled somewhat recently and the price is kind of at its highest that it can be, because as we're seeing, this home has already dropped $65K. It was not nabbed up in that first 47 days. So one reason that I, do kind of discourage investors from purchasing these homes that are sort of remodeled, somewhat updated, is because there's not much equity to push. So even if you go through and pour some money on there, right? You really probably won't turn a very sizable profit, if any. Now, if you love homes in general and you just want to see a historic building get loved up, by all means, I actually super support that. I love these old buildings. I just want people to see that, they are great purchases at certain times, especially if you just want a great home to live in. But if you're looking to get the highest price per square footage, you rarely get those with these old homes. Now saying that, because there's always a but if you are in Springfield and you have remodeled one of these historic homes like to a T, you'll actually fetch an incredibly high price per square footage, because it's kind of a thing in Springfield. And these historic homes that have been done, perfectly, like they are like literally perfectly restored, those are actually like quite a commodity. But I just noticed that this is another thing to know your markets. You don't see that super high premium price. You don't really see it in Marshfield. You don't really see it in Christian County. It's just something that I notice is very specific to Springfield. And that might be because it's kind of a thing for like sororities and fraternities and different university groups and like professors to buy these beautiful old Victorian homes that are just perfectly remodeled, that are usually right by the university, and they become kind of hubs to these groups, and some of these groups have deep pockets, right? So I don't know the total reason why, but I just noticed that Springfield has a market for it, and you can get premium dollar for a completely remodeled historical home. So we're gonna look at two more homes in Marshfield, and that's gonna actually kind of help us to assess the bulk of the homes that are on the market in Marshfield. So once again, I looked at kind of that mid price range, and what we found is that really like 145 to 155 was like where the bulk of the homes sat, price per square footage. And so I found two properties that I thought were kind of interesting to look at for that reason. So one that kind of sat nicely in the middle of, kind of the average price per square footage was $142.79 per square foot. It is a 1,400 square foot home. It's on a 1/4 acre which was a nice bigger lot than some of the others, but it's a 3-1 bath. And I didn't mention this with the 2-bedroom, 1 bath that we talked about in Mountain Grove, but 1 bath always gets less per square foot. It just does. And especially if you are an investor and you're trying to flip homes, I see this a lot, and you don't add that second bath, you're really going to, lengthen your days on market. And that, of course, days on market is going to kind of whittle away at the offers you get. You're going to tend to get lower offers. But if you can ever push that second bath, it's a good investment. So this home at $142.79 was fully remodeled, looked like new sheetrock, everything fully remodeled, but low grade finishes. I do want to say that. Nothing looked really fancy, but everything looked very clean. So the second home was similar, but totally different. Let me explain. So it was on roughly the same amount of acreage, a little bit more, but under 1/3 of an acre, somewhere in between 1/4 and 1/3 of an acre. But it was a 3-2. It did have that second bath. But the only thing that was done to this home was new carpet and paint. So it was that minimalist remodel that really everything else was just so outdated that it didn't even really have that feeling of being remodeled, although it was being marketed as being remodeled. So something to pay attention to. And that one, it was only 1,182 square feet. So a pretty small home. And that one was at $169.12 per square foot. So instantly I was like, that seems high. I need to prove kind of in my mind why this is high. So here's how I analyze those two properties. We have a larger home that's been remodeled and a smaller home that has not. So the larger home's 1,400 square feet, and I subtracted the smaller square footage from that, and we have a difference of 218 square feet. I took that square footage and I multiplied it by the more affordable square footage, which is the larger remodeled home. Right, and that was $142.79 per square foot. And that brings us to $31,128. And what I asked myself is this: in this larger home, could I put in a bathroom for that amount? Yeah, I could. So instantly you can see that this extra bathroom, it doesn't justify the price per square footage that they're asking for. Also, this larger home is completely remodeled. So that helps me to assess the fact that this smaller home is for surely overpriced. So there's no exact formula that I'm using here, but as you can see, I'm using just a lot of just kind of comparative analysis. Looking at all these properties to kind of start to get a feel for the market. And this is what I like to do in all these different classifications, whether I'm trying to compare new builds to fully remodeled homes, or if I'm trying to compare, different metro areas, something like that. All of these different techniques really help to kind of demystify all these prices. Now we're gonna move on to Nixa, which is definitely just such a more productive market. There's so much more inventory in Nixa, larger population, and of course you have that closer proximity to Springfield. So the prices really jump up in Nixa. The average square foot price is $175.67. So that's averaging the lowest and the highest, and yeah, that is a serious jump up from the other two areas that we've looked at. So like I said with Nixa, we're gonna see prices really jump up, and you can definitely see that with the highest price per square footage, which is $383.70. Yes, huge jump. That home is actually almost 1.5 million, so it's 1,450,000. Not even a huge home, 3,779 square feet. It's a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath. And we're gonna come back to this property because I do wanna kind of touch on how we can look at this as being a little bit overpriced. Some of you are thinking, hey, that sounds a lot a bit overpriced. But you have to understand neighborhoods, right? This is in a neighborhood that, you know, usually fetches similar prices. So there's that. And of course, there's a huge gulf for the lowest price per square foot, which is down to $161.48. Low, but really just in comparison, because remember, you know, Mountain Grove was $52. So now this home was in better condition, but nothing was done to it. So this home is 1,176 square feet. And I love the way that realtors will word things that says, come on into this home and be greeted by the original charm of this home, which means it's not updated. But I'll tell you what, for Nixa, it's $189,000 for this home. And it'll probably get close to that. A small unremodeled home, just because Nixa is so much pricier. So I'm not going to do a deep dive on properties in Nixa, but I did want to make a few points. So it has a lot more inventory. It's just, it is booming in Nixa. Christian County is the fastest growing county in all of Missouri, to put it into perspective. It's kind of like the, you know, upper echelon suburb of Springfield is kind of what it's becoming, but has its own nice metros. Nixa and Ozark are really amazing metros in itself, so they have that. But yeah, the inventory's, wow, so much bigger there. And there's probably about 60 homes that are in that average range, which is about $300K to $399. And what I found just briefly looking at them is there was so much range in price per square footage within that median price point. And so as I'm kind of showing you guys how I kind of demystify these numbers, I would actually really dig into that inventory. Those 60 homes that are in that $300 to $399 range, I would start to itemize all the new construction, all the fully remodeled, all of the unremodeled, and then really start to, as you dig into those numbers, you really start to reveal the good prices from the bad ones. But there's one other thing I wanted to talk about before we end this video, which is new construction. So, gosh, people are going to disagree with these numbers, but you have to understand, a lot of builders will be like, I can build for so much cheaper than that, but they're not actually like counting their labor. You know what I mean? This is like, these numbers are, if you go to a solid builder and you say, you know, what can I get for low-end finishes, low-end, you know, quality home, mid-range, and then the high-end, all with a high-quality builder that you are paying. So of course, if you are doing all or some of the work yourself, and we're looking more at just like materials, you can whittle these prices way, way down. But I think it's important to know like what a builder will sell you a home at, right? And this is, you know, kind of like in more of the rural areas, but it kind of, these prices will jump up in some of these like more niche areas, but this is a good average, okay? So there's a builder that we love that my husband works with, and he's really good, really experienced. He can build just absolutely custom homes, but he's super humble, he's super affordable, and he really doesn't charge as much as some of the other builders we've seen that don't have his level of experience. So I'm gonna go with his numbers, knowing that there's other people that will charge you way more, and I know that they actually aren't even as good. So these numbers will range a lot, but I wanted to talk about new construction. So a low-end build, so we're talking just something cookie cutter, you know what I mean? Not a bad home, but just nothing fancy. He can do for about $150 per square foot, and that is him whittling it down, right? That's him whittling it down. Mid-range is gonna definitely jump up, and I'm gonna guess about 200 to 250. And when I say mid-range, I'm talking about a pretty custom home, okay? So mid sounds like it's not nice, but I mean, we're talking really nice homes. We're just not talking like luxury, right? And then when you get into that luxury new build, I really like to price them. And so this is like what I'm expecting to get from the builder is around $275 per square foot to $375. And the reason why I wanted to talk about those numbers is we can take that $375, which is like the highest number I get. I mean, we're talking really beautiful luxury home at that for that point. We can then reflect on the highest price per square footage right now in Nixa, which is $383 and 70 cents. And I mean, just looking at it, you can see that it is high. Okay. What you see with these luxury homes is that then you're paying, they price them higher because of the neighborhoods. So this is in a coveted area and people pay more for that area. Now, here's the great thing about luxury though, is that there is a lot more wiggle room in those prices. No matter what anyone tells you, if a luxury agent ever tells you otherwise, and I'm certified for luxury as well, and I crunch the numbers a lot, and I look at the price drops. I look at what was the asking price to what actually the purchase price was. And there's usually a huge gulf. So that is where it is not uncommon to see $250,000 at least in a price drop. I'm pretty aggressive at negotiations unless there's reasons not to, and I like to give my clients all the information. Like if there's competition or if it's just priced so well, I'm probably not going to be so aggressive. At least I'll tell my clients why I wouldn't be. But with a lot of these luxury homes, I'm going to start pretty tough out the gate, maybe even down to $500,000 off the asking price, depending on the home. So yeah, that is obviously the difference between luxury and your average to even higher quality homes is, the amount of room in the price is pretty big. So you guys, I know that was so much information. I usually don't do videos with so much data. I usually, tell a lot of stories, but I think these videos occasionally are really important because I want consumers to be just as savvy as investors. Truly, when you're buying something that for most of us, it's the biggest purchase we ever make, the home we live in. And, sometimes just being armed with some of this knowledge is enough to save $10,000 to $50,000. So I know it's a lot of data, folks, but I want it to save you money. And if you stuck around all the way to the end of this video, I'm gonna figure that you're into analytics or numbers, like you're a math nerd, probably. I'm not even sure I can watch all this video. It's a lot of numbers, but here's the truth. If you do not want to crunch all these numbers and you're still here, just know that I will do this work for you. I will always try to give you, break it down for you, but do the heavy lifting so that you don't have to go through and spend hours looking at all these numbers. Always know all my information is in the description. If you have any questions, anything regarding real estate, both residential, land, and commercial in Southern Missouri, then give me a call. Give me a call, text, Zoom, all that stuff. We can do whatever your favorite mode of communication is. All right, you guys, until next time, bye.